Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world is holding its breath, gripped by a sense of uncertainty that stretches from bustling city streets to the quiet corners of distant villages. Every headline, every breaking news alert, seems to carry the weight of history in the making. People everywhere are glued to their screens, searching for answers, hoping for reassurance, and bracing for what might come next. As President Trump's second term plunges the United States and its closest allies into a deepening crisis, the world watches with a mix of anxiety and disbelief. The White House, once a symbol of stability, now stands at the center of a political storm, its decisions sending shockwaves far beyond American borders. What began as a series of controversial domestic policies has now exploded into a full-blown international emergency. Across the country, protests erupt in city after city, as citizens demand answers and accountability. Meanwhile, military forces mobilize at sea, and the world's financial markets react with panic, sending stocks into a tailspin. The very foundations of government appear shaken, as constitutional norms are tested like never before. The stability of the international order and the health of the U.S. economy now hang in the balance. Global markets are in freefall, and the world's financial centers, once bustling with activity, are eerily quiet. Regions across the globe light up with crisis, each one a flashpoint threatening to ignite something bigger. Aggressive tariffs and retaliatory trade measures threaten the flow of everyday goods, putting jobs and livelihoods at risk not just in America, but around the world. Cargo ships sit idle in ports, supermarket shelves grow sparse, and factories struggle to keep their doors open. Small businesses, the backbone of countless communities, face closures and uncertainty as the economic shockwaves spread. At the same time, military posturing in the Caribbean has brought the world to the brink of a new conflict. Warships patrol tense waters, fighter jets roar overhead, and satellite images reveal a region on high alert. The risk of a single miscalculation sparking a wider confrontation has never felt more real. At home, America's democratic institutions are facing unprecedented tests. The Supreme Court, Congress, and the very framework of the Constitution are under intense scrutiny as leaders grapple with questions that will define the nation's future. Protests outside government buildings reflect a society deeply divided, while legislative chambers echo with heated debate and uncertainty. The decisions made in Washington, D.C. are not isolated. They ripple outward, shaping the fate of nations and the lives of billions. At tense international summits, world leaders weigh their options, while news anchors around the globe try to make sense of the rapidly changing landscape. The world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher. This is not a simple partisan squabble or a passing political storm. It is a global crisis with deeply personal consequences for millions. Families gather around their televisions, worried about their futures. Small business owners wonder if they'll survive another week. In cities from New York to Nairobi, crowds move with a sense of unease, aware that the world they know is changing before their eyes. In this pivotal moment, we'll break down the military escalation, economic turmoil, political shifts, and international fallout that are shaping our world. Join us as we explore the forces at play, the decisions being made, and the uncertain path that lies ahead for all of us. Trump's second term began with a promise of decisive action, a pledge to his supporters that he would not only continue, but intensify his efforts to reshape the American political landscape. And he delivered, immediately pushing the limits of presidential power. His administration wasted no time in issuing a flurry of executive orders, each one more controversial than the last, aimed at bypassing the legislative gridlock that had stymied his first term. Moves like attempting to end birthright citizenship, a cornerstone of American identity, sparked nationwide debates and legal battles. Critics argued that such actions were not only unconstitutional, but also fundamentally un-American. And floating radical foreign policy proposals such as withdrawing from long-standing international agreements and alliances further alienated traditional allies while emboldening adversaries. These moves were seen as a dramatic shift from established diplomatic norms, signaled a break from tradition. The contrast between Trump and his predecessors was stark, as he often eschewed the decorum and protocols that had long defined the office. The administration's integration of Elon Musk into government blurred lines between private enterprise and public authority. This partnership was emblematic of a broader trend towards privatization and deregulation, raising questions about the influence of corporate interests on public policy. Efforts to impound congressionally approved funds and weaken executive agencies were part of a broader strategy to consolidate power within the executive branch. These actions were met with fierce resistance from both sides of the political aisle. Further concentrated power in the White House. The administration's approach to governance was characterized by a top-down authoritarian style that left little room for dissent or debate. These actions set a new tone: executive will over constitutional process, laying the groundwork for the crises to come. The balance of power between the branches of government was increasingly tilted in favor of the presidency. The stage was set for a presidency defined by disruption and confrontation. As the nation braced for the challenges ahead, it was clear that the Trump administration would leave an indelible mark on American history. Tensions with Venezuela have erupted into direct military confrontation. Recent U.S. strikes on Venezuelan vessels, justified as anti-drug operations, have resulted in fatalities and escalated brinkmanship. Accusations and retaliations from both sides have created a perilous tit-for-tat cycle. Security experts warn that a single miscalculation could trigger a broader conflict, destabilizing the region and sparking a refugee crisis. The administration's rhetoric fuels anti-immigrant sentiment and heightens risk for the Venezuelan diaspora. This is more than a geopolitical standoff, it's a volatile tinderbox with global consequences. The world watches, anxious for a diplomatic off-ramp that seems increasingly out of reach. Alongside military escalation, the Trump administration has launched a sweeping global trade war. Massive tariffs on Chinese imports and new duties on all trading partners have shattered decades of free trade consensus. Markets plunged, wiping out trillions in value as uncertainty spread. Allies' offers to de-escalate were dismissed, leaving even close partners like Israel facing steep tariffs. The administration's hardline stance and mixed messaging have paralyzed investment and upended global supply chains. This is not just economic policy, it's a radical reshaping of global relationships. The full impact on prices, jobs, and alliances is only beginning to be felt. Wall Street's top voices are sounding the alarm. BlackRock's Larry Fink and hedge fund manager Bill Ackman warn that the U.S. may already be in a self-induced recession. J.P. Morgan Chase has raised the odds of recession to 60%, predicting stagflation, slower growth, and higher prices. Tariffs act as a tax on consumers and businesses, while retaliatory measures hurt U.S. exporters. The uncertainty has frozen investment and forced companies to consider layoffs. These warnings aren't abstract, they're expert diagnoses of a rapidly deteriorating economy. The administration's trade strategy is fueling a vicious cycle of contraction and instability. As global crises mount, a domestic battle over the nature of U.S. government intensifies. Legal scholars argue the administration's actions form a coordinated push to expand presidential power and sideline Congress and the courts. Moves like ending birthright citizenship by decree and impounding funds are part of a broader constitutional revolution. The administration's use of financial leverage to impose its will on institutions, like the UCLA funding threat, exemplifies this strategy. Hyperpartisanship in Congress has left the legislative branch too divided to check executive overreach. The result, a slow-motion crisis of governance, with the balance of power at stake. America's closest allies are reeling from the administration's unilateralism. Military strikes and sweeping tariffs have left partners feeling betrayed and uncertain. The EU's offer to eliminate tariffs was dismissed, straining transatlantic ties and pushing Europe toward greater independence. Even Israel's concessions failed to prevent new tariffs, signaling that no ally is immune. This erosion of trust weakens collective responses to global challenges and leaves the U.S. increasingly isolated. Decades of diplomatic capital are being spent at an alarming rate. The long-term crisis of trust may outlast the immediate economic and military conflicts. Experts warn these crises are not isolated. They're interconnected parts of a strategy to consolidate executive power. The trade war, military strikes, and domestic power grabs all serve to expand presidential authority and bypass traditional checks. Each escalation, whether economic or military, feeds a cycle of confrontation and instability. The administration's approach is testing the resilience of U.S. institutions and global norms. The risk of accidental war or systemic breakdown is rising. This is a deliberate stress test of the systems that have structured order for generations. The outcome remains profoundly uncertain. The United States, along with the rest of the world, now stands at a pivotal crossroads. We are facing what many are calling a perfect storm, a convergence of military tensions, economic volatility, and deep constitutional challenges. These crises are not isolated, they are interconnected, each one intensifying the effects of the others. The decisions made in one arena ripple outward, amplifying instability and uncertainty across the globe. As dominoes fall, the consequences are felt everywhere. Economic shocks can trigger political unrest, while military escalations can undermine fragile markets. The news cycle is relentless, and every headline seems to add fuel to the fire, making it harder for anyone to predict what comes next. At the heart of this turmoil is the aggressive expansion of executive power, which has strained the very foundations of democratic governance. Meanwhile, the alienation of long-standing allies threatens the stability of the global order, leaving many to wonder if the systems built over decades can endure these tests. For ordinary citizens, the challenge is clear. Staying informed and engaged is more vital than ever. In a world awash with information and misinformation, critical thinking and active participation are essential tools for navigating these turbulent times. Communities are coming together, seeking clarity and connection, determined not to be passive observers but active participants in shaping the future. The coming weeks and months will be decisive. Leaders face stark choices. Will they seek to de-escalate tensions and restore trust, or will they double down on division and confrontation? The resilience of our institutions, political, economic, and social, will be tested as never before. The urgency is palpable, and the stakes could not be higher. The answers to these questions are not yet written. We are truly in uncharted waters with no clear map to guide us. The path forward will be shaped by the choices we make collectively, and by our willingness to confront uncertainty with courage and resolve. In this moment, the responsibility to watch, learn, and understand falls on all of us. Our vigilance and engagement will help determine the future we share. By staying informed, asking questions, and holding leaders accountable, we can help steer the course through these uncharted waters toward a future defined not by crisis, but by hope and resilience.